Raiding the Tomb of Peter. Simon Peter, also known as Cephas, was one of the 12 disciples and part of Jesus' inner circle. Peter, James, and John were the only 3 disciples to see the transfiguration of Jesus. And like James and John, Peter, along with his brother Andrew, was a lowly fisherman by trade. In Matthew 16:18, Jesus says, "I also tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it." In one of the most poignant moments in the Bible, Peter tests his faith by walking on water, which doesn't end well for Peter. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus rebukes Peter, James, and John for falling asleep when they should have been praying. And when Jesus is arrested, Peter reacts with violence, cutting off the ear of a priest. Later, when he is accused of being a follower of Jesus, Peter denies him 3 times. Of all the disciples, Peter is probably the most relatable because he is flawed, just like us. After the resurrection, Peter is one of the first disciples to see Jesus, and from that point on, he becomes a pillar of the church. After receiving the vision of the unclean animals, Peter converts Cornelius, the Roman centurion, and begins a missionary journey to Lydda, Joppa, and Caesarea, eventually ending in Rome, where he will be martyred by Emperor Nero. Do we have any historical evidence for the death of Peter? Yes, we do, and a lot of it. The earliest reference to St. Peter's death is in a letter of Clement, Bishop of Rome, to the Corinthians, dating to 96 AD. This was only about 30 years after Peter's martyrdom. Roman historian Tertullian, circa 160 to 220, confirms that Peter was killed in Nero's circus. Writing at the time of Constantine, historian Eusebius describes how Peter came to Rome and was crucified with his head downwards. He attributes this information to the early church father Origen, who lived from 185 to 253 AD. Writing to Pope Soter, who died in 174 AD, Dionysius of Corinth thanks him for planting Peter and Paul in Rome, the site of their church planting ministry. Shortly after Peter's death, Pope Anacletus built a sepulchral monument over Peter's tomb, and as early as the 3rd century, the site had become a place of veneration for Christians. In a letter dating to the early 3rd century, priest Caius states, "But I can show the trophies of the apostles, for if you will go to the Vatican or to the Ostian Way, you will find the trophies of those who laid the foundations of this church." Between 320 and 327 AD, Constantine built a basilica on top of Nero's circus, which had by then become an early Christian necropolis where Peter was buried. A gold cross weighing 150 pounds was laid on top of Peter's bronze sarcophagus. Unfortunately, all such treasures were presumably stolen after the Saracens attacked Rome in 846 AD. The current St. Peter's Basilica dates to the 16th century and was built on top of the old one. Numerous excavations have taken place at St. Peter's Basilica. In 1942, relics were accidentally discovered at a second tomb monument, but it wasn't until 1968 that they were properly examined and declared to be the remains of St. Peter. Since the 9th century, the skull of St. Peter has resided just outside the Vatican walls in the Archbasilica of St. John Lateran, the official seat of the Bishop of Rome. The death and burial of St. Peter are 2 of the most thoroughly documented events in church history, confirming both the veracity of the Bible and the importance of Christianity to the world. Hi,
I'm David. If you liked this video, help me get the message out. Share it with somebody. And watch the next one.